The abandoned Morrison Building stood like a forgotten sentinel in downtown Los Angeles, its weathered brick facade hiding secrets within. No one questioned why the lights occasionally flickered behind boarded windows, or why shadows moved across frosted glass when the building was supposedly empty. For 2 years, Scarlett Johansson had slipped through its rusted side door unnoticed, trading Hollywood glamour for the gritty reality within those walls. Today was different. A passerby had recognized her, phone camera recording as she disappeared. Inside, by nightfall, police vehicles surrounded the building, lights flashing against rain-slicked pavement. Officers emerged confused. The building appeared empty with no sign of the actress or anyone else. But what did they miss in those labyrinthine hallways? What was Scarlett Johansson, one of Hollywood's most recognizable stars, doing in this decrepit place, and how did she vanish without a trace? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The abandoned Morrison Building stood like a forgotten sentinel in downtown Los Angeles, its weathered brick facade hiding secrets within. No one questioned why the lights occasionally flickered behind boarded windows, or why shadows moved across frosted glass when the building was supposedly empty. For 2 years, Scarlett Johansson had slipped through its rusted side door unnoticed, trading Hollywood glamour for the gritty reality within those walls. Today was different. A passerby had recognized her, phone camera recording as she disappeared inside. By nightfall, police vehicles surrounded the building, lights flashing against rain-slicked pavement. Officers emerged confused. The building appeared empty, with no sign of the actress or anyone else. But what did they miss in those labyrinthine hallways? What was Scarlett Johansson, one of Hollywood's most recognizable stars, doing in this decrepit place? And how did she vanish without a trace? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning light filtered through the half-closed blinds of Scarlett Johansson's Malibu beach house, painting golden stripes across her face. At 51, the lines around her eyes had deepened, but they were the kind that spoke of laughter and experience rather than hardship. The alarm on her phone chimed softly. 5:30 a.m. Most days she'd hit snooze, but Tuesdays and Thursdays were different. Scarlett swung her legs over the side of the bed and stretched, feeling the familiar tightness in her lower back. A souvenir from that stunt gone wrong on the set of Black Widow 3 almost 15 years ago. Her bedroom was tastefully minimalist, not the ostentatious luxury people expected from Hollywood royalty, but a thoughtfully curated space. The only truly personal item visible was a framed black and white photograph on her nightstand. A young man in military dress uniform, his eyes serious but kind beneath his service cap. "Morning, Grandpa," she whispered, touching the frame lightly with her fingertips, a ritual she'd observed for decades. In her spacious walk-in closet, Scarlett bypassed the designer clothes and reached for what her stylist jokingly called her civilian disguise: worn jeans, a plain gray hoodie, minimal makeup, and a baseball cap. She tucked her distinctive hair under the cap and slipped on non-prescription glasses with thick black frames. The transformation wasn't about vanity. It was about necessity. As she moved through her kitchen, Scarlett prepared a travel mug of strong black coffee and grabbed a protein bar. Her housekeeper, Maria, wouldn't arrive for another 3 hours. This early morning ritual was private, one of the few aspects of her life that remained untouched by public scrutiny. The garage door hummed open to reveal not the Ferrari or custom Range Rover the tabloids often photographed her in, but a nondescript 10-year-old Prius with slightly tinted windows. It wasn't registered in her name, and its unremarkable appearance was its greatest asset. As she pulled onto Pacific Coast Highway, Scarlett rolled down the window slightly, letting the salt air clear her mind. Traffic was light at this hour, and she enjoyed the rare freedom of driving herself without paparazzi motorcycles flanking her. The drive from Malibu to downtown Los Angeles would take about an hour, time she used to mentally transition from Scarlett Johansson, A-list actress with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, to just Scar, volunteer at the bunker. Her thoughts drifted to when this all began, 2 years earlier. She'd been at a Veterans Affairs fundraiser, another black tie gala where celebrities posed with former service members for carefully choreographed photos. But something had felt hollow about it all, the performative charity, the distance between those giving and receiving help. That's when she'd met Elena Vasquez, a straight-talking social worker who didn't seem the least bit impressed by Scarlett's presence. "You know, most of these guys won't even get into the programs these galas fund," Elena had said, not bothering with pleasantries when Scarlett approached her at the bar. "What do you mean?" Scarlett had asked, genuinely surprised. "I mean paperwork, waiting lists, criteria that exclude the most vulnerable. The ones who need help most are often the ones least able to access it." That conversation had changed everything. 2 days later, Elena had taken Scarlett to the bunker, a community-created, Veterans Support Center operating out of the abandoned Morrison Building downtown. What was meant to be a 1-hour tour had turned into a 5-hour visit, and by the end, Scarlett had committed to regular volunteer shifts. As the skyline of downtown Los Angeles materialized through the morning haze, Scarlett felt the familiar mixture of anxiety and purpose that accompanied these trips. The world knew her as an actress, producer, and philanthropist whose causes were carefully selected and publicized by her PR team. No one knew about the bunker. No one knew about her grandfather's struggles after Vietnam, how he'd lived on the streets for 3 years before getting help, how he'd made her promise to remember that heroes often wore invisible scars. She parked several blocks away from the Morrison Building in a paid lot where attendants changed too frequently to recognize her. From there she walked, keeping her head down and her pace brisk. The morning crowd was sparse, office workers clutching coffee cups, street cleaners finishing their shifts, the occasional jogger. The Morrison Building had once been the headquarters of a shipping company in the 1940s, later serving as government offices before being abandoned in the early 2000s due to seismic concerns. Its red brick exterior was discolored and graffitied, windows either boarded up or covered in newspaper from the inside. A chain-link fence surrounded the property, bearing faded "no trespassing" signs. To the casual observer, it appeared to be just another forgotten building awaiting either demolition or gentrification. Scarlett approached from the south side where a dumpster partially obscured a section of fence with a discreet cut just large enough for a person to slip through. She checked for observers, seeing none, and quickly ducked through the opening. The side door required a specific knock, 2 quick taps, pause, 3 slow ones. After a moment, it opened just enough for her to slide inside. "Morning, Doc." Scarlett greeted the elderly man who'd admitted her. Robert "Doc" Williamson had served as a medic in Vietnam, and at 78 was the oldest resident of the bunker. His thin frame and stooped shoulders contrasted with the alertness in his eyes and the precision of his movements. He secured the door behind her with practiced efficiency. "Right on time, Scar. We've got a new arrival last night. Young woman, helicopter pilot. Afghanistan and Iraq. Name's Maya. She's skittish, so go easy." The interior of the Morrison Building bore little resemblance to its decrepit exterior. While still rough around the edges, the main floor had been transformed into a functional community space. What had once been an open office plan now featured partitioned sleeping areas, a communal kitchen, shower facilities, and various workshop spaces. Old office furniture had been repurposed alongside donated items, creating an eclectic but functional environment. Solar panels hidden on the roof provided minimal electricity for essentials. A complex water collection system supplemented the building's reconnected water supply. The space wasn't luxury by any measure, but it offered shelter, basic amenities, and most importantly, community. "Elena here yet?" Scarlett asked, removing her cap and glasses now that she was inside. "Downstairs with Marcus." Something about the basement flooding again. The building's basement had once been a bunker during the Cold War era, hence the nickname that had stuck for the entire operation. The lower levels housed additional sleeping quarters, storage, and, unknown to most outsiders, access to maintenance tunnels that connected to several other buildings in the area. Those tunnels had proven invaluable for discreetly moving supplies, and when necessary, people. Scarlett made her way through the main area, greeting the veterans who were awake. Many were still asleep in their partitioned spaces, exhaustion being a common companion for those dealing with PTSD, chronic pain, and the general stress of life after service without adequate support. In the communal kitchen, she began the morning ritual of preparing breakfast. This wasn't charity work for cameras. It was practical service, cooking eggs and toast, brewing industrial quantities of coffee, setting out medications for those who needed reminders to take them. The routine had become as familiar to her as memorizing lines for a role. Need a hand? The voice belonged to Marcus Johnson, the unofficial leader of the bunker. In his mid-40s, Marcus carried himself with the straight-backed discipline of his Marine Corps training. Despite transitioning to civilian life over a decade ago, he maintained a military short haircut and precise manner of speaking. The sleeves of his flannel shirt were rolled up, revealing forearms covered in tattoos, unit insignias, and memorial dates. "Morning, Marcus. Doc said there's flooding downstairs." "Minor leak. Fixed now." Marcus wasn't one for unnecessary words. "But we've got a bigger problem. Elena's briefing everyone at 0800. Scarlett checked her watch, 7:15 a.m. "Something I should know about now?" Marcus hesitated, then pulled a folded paper from his back pocket and handed it to her. It was a notice from the city, stating that the building had been purchased by Whitaker Development Corporation, with demolition scheduled to begin in 30 days to make way for luxury condominiums. "This can't be right," Scarlett said, reading the notice twice. "This building was tied up in estate litigation. That's why no one's touched it for years. Apparently the litigation ended. Elena's looking into it." The implications hit her immediately. The bunker currently housed 27 veterans full-time, with another 40 who utilized services on a drop-in basis. Many had nowhere else to go. Traditional shelters often couldn't accommodate their specific needs, particularly those related to PTSD and other service-connected issues. "We knew this day might come," Marcus said, his voice level despite the gravity of the situation. "No abandoned building stays abandoned forever in downtown LA." Before Scarlett could respond, she heard a crash from the far side of the room. A young woman had knocked over a stack of plastic crates, sending them clattering across the floor. Her reaction was immediate and alarming. She dropped into a defensive crouch, eyes wide with the 1,000-yard stare Scarlett had come to recognize in veterans triggered by sudden noises. "That's Maya," Marcus said quietly. "I've got this." He approached the woman slowly, hands visible, voice calm as he talked her through the moment. Scarlett resumed breakfast preparation, deliberately making her movements loud enough to be normal, but not startling. She'd learned these nuances over time: how to move, how to speak, how to be present without adding to the stress of those whose nervous systems remained on high alert. By 8 a.m., most residents had gathered in what they called the mess hall, a large open area with mismatched tables and chairs. Elena Vasquez stood at the front, her curly hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, dark circles under her eyes suggesting she'd been up most of the night. At 45, Elena had spent 2 decades in social work, specializing in veteran services, after her brother returned from Iraq with injuries both visible and invisible. "I know most of you have seen the notice," she began without preamble. "Yes, it's legitimate. Whitaker Development filed the final paperwork yesterday. They own the building now." A rumble of concerned voices filled the room. Elena raised her hand for quiet. "We have options, but they're limited. Legally, we have no right to be here. We've been operating under the radar because no one cared about this building. Now someone does." "Who's Whitaker?" someone called out. "Thomas Whitaker, major developer, specializes in luxury properties. His company has been buying up this whole area block by block for the past 5 years." Scarlett knew the name. Thomas Whitaker was a fixture at the same kind of charity events she attended. Mid-60s, silver-haired, always photographed with models half his age. His company's logo adorned construction sites across Los Angeles. "Can we fight it?" asked Doc, his voice surprisingly strong despite his frail appearance. Elena sighed. "We're exploring all avenues. But I need to be honest. Without legal standing, Our position is weak. Our best hope might be to negotiate for time and relocation assistance. The room erupted in voices, some angry, some frightened, all concerned. Many of these veterans had finally found stability after years of struggle. The bunker wasn't just shelter, it was a community that understood the unique challenges they faced. Scarlett felt a familiar tightness in her chest. Her grandfather's dog tags hung beneath her shirt, a constant reminder of her promise to him. She touched them through the fabric, a habitual gesture when she needed strength. "What if I approached Whitaker?" she suggested, raising her voice to be heard over the discussion. The room quieted immediately. "As yourself?" Elena asked, eyebrows raised. "If necessary, yes." Marcus shook his head. "The moment Scarlett Johansson gets involved, this stops being about veterans and starts being about a celebrity cause, media circus. Exactly what most folks here came to avoid." He wasn't wrong. Many residents of the bunker valued their privacy deeply, some hiding from past traumas, others from public perception of their struggles. Having their space invaded by cameras and reporters would be devastating for many. "There must be another approach," Scarlett said. "Let me at least research Whitaker, see if there's some angle we haven't considered." Elena nodded. "We'll pursue multiple strategies. In the meantime, we need contingency plans. If we have to evacuate, we need somewhere for everyone to go." The meeting continued, breaking into task forces, legal research, potential alternative locations, inventory of supplies that would need to be moved. Scarlett joined the research team, knowing her resources and connections could be useful without necessarily revealing her involvement. As the groups dispersed, Scarlett noticed Maya sitting alone, sketching intensely in a notebook. She approached, carefully, making sure her footsteps were audible. "Mind if I join you?" Maya looked up, her dark eyes assessing Scarlett with military precision. She was younger than Scarlett had initially thought, perhaps early 30s, with close-cropped, black hair and a scar running along her jawline. "Free country," Maya said with a shrug, returning to her sketch. Scarlett sat down, respecting the silence. She'd learned that pushing conversation was rarely effective. After a few minutes, curiosity got the better of Maya. "So what's your deal? Anyway? You're obviously not a vet." "My grandfather was Vietnam. He had a rough time when he came home." Maya nodded slightly, acknowledging the connection without sentimentalizing it. "And now you what? Volunteer out of guilt? Looking for movie role research?" The accusation might have stung coming from someone else, but Scarlett recognized the protective cynicism for what it was. "Neither, I hope. I'm here because people, like my grandfather, needed places like this and didn't have them." Maya studied Scarlett's face, looking for signs of insincerity. Whatever she saw must have satisfied her because she turned her sketchbook slightly, allowing Scarlett to see the drawing, a helicopter viewed from below, rendered with technical precision. "Black Hawk," Maya said. "Flew them for 8 years. 2 tours Afghanistan, 1 Iraq." "You're an artist," Scarlett observed, genuinely impressed by the detail. Maya gave a bitter laugh. "I was an aircraft mechanic before I was a pilot. Drawing. The parts helped me understand them better." She flipped through earlier pages in the sketchbook, showing technical drawings alongside more impressionistic scenes of military life. "These are remarkable," Scarlett said. "Have you ever shown them publicly? And be the traumatized veteran artist?" "No thanks." Maya closed the sketchbook decisively. "I don't need to be anyone's inspiration porn." Before Scarlett could respond, her phone vibrated in her pocket. The screen showed a text from her assistant. "Urgent. Need to discuss schedule change for charity gala tonight." Reality intruded. In 12 hours, she would be in a designer gown at the Beverly Wilshire, presenting an award to a director she'd worked with, her hair and makeup professionally styled, every word and gesture photographed and analyzed. The contrast between her two worlds had never felt more stark. "I need to take this," she apologized, standing. Maya nodded, already reopening her sketchbook. "We all have our other lives." Scarlett found a quiet corner to return the call, mentally shifting gears to deal with the logistics of her public persona. When she finished, she noticed Elena motioning to her from across the room. "We may have a lead," Elena said when Scarlett joined her. "Whitaker's company is hosting a community forum next week to discuss their development plans for the area. It's mostly for show, but it might give us a chance to at least be heard." "I'll look into it," Scarlett promised. "And I'll have my assistant gather everything she can find on Whitaker's previous developments, see if there are any patterns we can use." Elena lowered her voice. "You know, your name alone could buy us time. One call to the media. It's not my call to make," Scarlett said firmly. "This community has to decide together if that's a price they're willing to pay." "You're right," Elena conceded. "I just hate feeling this powerless." Scarlett squeezed her friend's shoulder. "We're not powerless, not yet." The rest of the morning passed quickly as Scarlett assisted with the bunker's regular operations, helping with job application paperwork, practicing interview skills with veterans seeking employment, and organizing donations that had arrived through their discreet network of supporters. As noon approached, she prepared to leave. Her afternoon schedule included a script reading and a meeting with producers about an upcoming project. She'd once again become Scarlett Johansson, navigating the machinery of Hollywood that had defined much of her life. She said her goodbyes, promising to return with more information about Whitaker development. As she slipped her cap and glasses back on, Doc approached, holding something in his gnarled hand. "Almost forgot. Found this while cleaning out one of the storage rooms." He handed her a small metal object, a military dog tag, tarnished with age. "Not your grandfather's, I know, but it reminded me of something he might have worn. Thought you might want it." Scarlett took the dog tag, running her thumb over the embossed letters that had faded with time. The name was barely legible. "Wilson, J." "Thank you, Doc," she said, genuinely touched by the gesture. "Your grandfather would be proud, you know," he said quietly. "Not of the movies or the fame, of this. Of remembering what matters." She tucked the dog tag into her pocket next to her grandfather's tags, the metal warm against her palm. "See you Thursday, Doc." "God willing and the creek don't rise," he replied with his customary farewell. Scarlett retraced her steps out of the building, slipping through the fence gap and walking briskly back to her car. The mundane act of paying for parking and navigating out of the garage grounded her as she prepared to step back into her public life. As she waited at a stoplight, her gaze drifted to a construction site across the intersection. A large banner proclaimed, "Future home of Whitaker Meridian, luxury living in the heart of downtown." The glossy rendering showed a gleaming high-rise with rooftop gardens and floor-to-ceiling windows, the kind of building that would sell multi-million-dollar condos to young tech executives and foreign investors. The contrast wasn't lost on Scarlett. One block over, veterans who had served their country slept in partitioned spaces in an abandoned building, while here, luxury awaited those who could afford it. She made a mental note of the Whitaker Development logo and the contact information displayed prominently on the banner. As the light changed, Scarlett drove forward, her two worlds temporarily converging in her determination to find a solution. The dog tags clinked softly in her pocket, a subtle reminder of promises made and kept. Sarah Chen clutched her coffee cup tighter as she hurried down the sidewalk, cursing the 4-inch heels her editor had insisted would make her look more professional on camera. At 38, she'd spent 15 years chasing stories across Los Angeles, and she still hadn't landed the big one that would elevate her from field reporter to anchor. Her latest assignment, covering the city council's approval of new downtown development projects, was hardly the break she needed. As she approached the corner of 7th and Broadway, movement caught her eye. A woman in jeans and a gray hoodie was slipping through a gap in the fence surrounding the old Morrison Building. There was something oddly familiar about her profile, the way she moved. Sarah slowed her pace, journalist's instincts prickling. The woman glanced around quickly before disappearing inside. Sarah checked her watch. She had an hour before she needed to be at City Hall. Curiosity won over punctuality as she crossed the street, positioning herself with a clear view of the building's entrance. She pulled out her phone and snapped a few photos of the exterior, then searched for information on the property. The Morrison Building had been empty for years, or so everyone thought. Property records showed it had recently been acquired by Whitaker Development Corporation. Sarah felt a tingle of excitement. Perhaps there was more to this story than zoning permits and tax incentives after all. 20 minutes passed before she saw the woman emerge again, more carefully this time. She wore glasses now and a baseball cap pulled low. But as she turned to secure the fence, Sarah caught a clear glimpse of her profile. "No way," Sarah whispered, quickly raising her phone to record video. The woman hurried away, head down, moving with purpose. Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. What was Scarlett Johansson, one of Hollywood's most recognizable actresses, doing, sneaking around an abandoned building? Was she researching a role? Involved in something illicit? Meeting someone in secret? Whatever the reason, Sarah knew one thing for certain. She'd just stumbled onto a potentially career-defining story. The morning blended into afternoon as Scarlett transitioned between her worlds. From a producer's office in Century City to her stylist's studio in West Hollywood, she moved through the familiar choreography of her public life. But her thoughts kept returning to the bunker and the threat it now faced. While her makeup artist prepared her for the evening's charity gala, Scarlett used her tablet to research Thomas Whitaker and his development company. The public profile was impressive. Harvard Business School, 30 years in real estate development, philanthropic board memberships at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art and California Institute of Technology. Photos showed him cutting ribbons, shaking hands with politicians, receiving awards for architectural innovation. "Looking up your table companions for tonight?" her makeup artist asked, noticing her concentration. "Just some research for a potential project," Scarlett replied smoothly. Years in the public eye had taught her the art of polite deflection. When her styling team finally departed, Scarlett made a secure call to Elena. "I've been looking into Whitaker," she said without preamble. "His company has a pattern. They buy distressed properties, demolish, build luxury spaces, but they also have a community benefits program. Every development includes some affordable housing units or community space." "How affordable is affordable?" Elena asked skeptically. "Not affordable enough for our purposes, but it shows they're at least aware of their public image. That might give us leverage. Any personal angles? Something that might make him sympathetic to veterans specifically?" Scarlett scrolled through her notes. Nothing obvious in his bio. Father was a banker, mother a socialite. Private school, Ivy League. Pretty standard privileged upbringing. Keep digging. Everyone has something in their past that shaped them. "Will do. How are things there?" Elena sighed. Tense. Some folks are already talking about leaving. They've been through too many broken promises, too many forced relocations. After ending the call, Scarlett stood before her full-length mirror, examining her transformation. The emerald gown, the artfully arranged hair, the perfectly applied makeup. This version of Scarlett Johansson was the one the world recognized, the one who existed in public consciousness. But beneath the designer fabric, her grandfather's dog tags and the newly acquired one from Doc rested against her skin, a grounding reminder of her private purpose. Her driver arrived at 7, and by 8, she was walking the red carpet at the Beverly Wilshire, smiling for cameras, answering the same questions with practiced charm. Inside, she navigated the gala with the skill of someone who had attended hundreds of such events, making appropriate small talk, laughing at the right moments, graciously accepting compliments on her recent performances. "Scarlett, wonderful to see you," called a voice from behind her. She turned to find Thomas Whitaker himself approaching, champagne flute in hand. At 65, he was trim and distinguished, his silver hair perfectly styled, his tuxedo custom-tailored. "Mr. Whitaker," she greeted him, masking her surprise. "I don't believe we've been formally introduced. Please call me Thomas, we share a table tonight." He gestured toward the seating chart. "I've admired your work for years. Your performance in Winter's Memory was extraordinary, quite deserving of the Oscar nomination." "Thank you. That role meant a great deal to me." Scarlett studied him, with new interest, wondering what this man would think if he knew she'd spent the morning in a building he planned to demolish. "I understand you're producing more these days," he continued, sipping his champagne. "Any interesting projects in the pipeline?" Scarlett gave him her standard response about exploring diverse stories and collaborating with emerging talent, but her mind was racing. This unexpected encounter could be either an opportunity or a complication. "And what about you?" she asked smoothly. "I hear your company is quite active in downtown revitalization." A practiced smile spread across his face. "Indeed. We're transforming several blocks of underutilized space into a dynamic mixed-use development. The Meridian project will bring jobs, housing, and renewed vitality to a neglected area." "Sounds impressive," Scarlett said carefully. "I imagine there must be challenges dealing with existing structures and communities." "Progress always faces resistance," he replied, his tone dismissive. "But ultimately, everyone benefits from urban renewal. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story." Before Scarlett could probe further, they were interrupted by the gala's host announcing dinner. As they moved toward their assigned table, she made a mental note to remain cautious. Thomas Whitaker clearly viewed himself as a visionary rather than a disruptor. Throughout dinner, Scarlett observed him closely. He was charming, certainly, moving easily between conversations about art, politics, and business. But there was something calculated about his warmth, as though each interaction were a transaction. When the topic of veterans' affairs came up, briefly he expressed standard sentiments about honoring service but quickly steered the conversation back to his latest building project. By the time Scarlett presented her award and made her graceful exit, she had learned little that would help. The bunker. Thomas Whitaker appeared to be exactly what his public profile suggested. A successful businessman with philanthropic interests that aligned conveniently with his business goals. The following morning, Scarlett was awakened by a call from Elena. "Turn on Channel 8, Elena said urgently. Scarlett fumbled for the remote, clicking on the television to find a news segment about downtown development. The reporter was standing directly in front of the Morrison Building. "Sources indicate that actress Scarlett Johansson has been seen entering this abandoned building multiple times in recent weeks," the reporter was saying. "The building, recently acquired by Whitaker Development for their Meridian project, has been vacant for years according to official records. However, neighbors report unusual activity, raising questions about what might be happening inside these walls. Whitaker Development has declined to comment on these reports." The camera zoomed in on a grainy image that was unmistakably Scarlett, despite the cap and glasses slipping through the fence. "Damn it," Scarlett muttered. "Who's the reporter?" "Sarah Chen," Elena replied. "Local news, ambitious type. She must have spotted you yesterday. Has this affected the bunker? Are people panicking?" "Marcus implemented Protocol Omega as soon as we saw the report. Most residents have temporarily relocated to safe houses. Only essential personnel remained for normal operations, but we're operating on high alert. Protocol Omega was their contingency plan for public exposure, a system for quickly and discreetly evacuating vulnerable residents to a network of temporary safe locations throughout the city. They had developed it years ago but had never needed to use it until now. I'm so sorry, Elena. This is exactly what we were trying to avoid. It's not your fault. We always knew this was a risk." Elena paused. "But now we need to decide how to respond. This could either destroy everything we've built or become an opportunity to fight for something better." Scarlett closed her eyes, thinking of the veterans who had found refuge in the bunker, of Doc's gentle wisdom, of Maya's haunting sketches. "Let me talk to my team first. We need to get ahead of this story before it spirals." Within an hour, Scarlett's publicist, legal, counsel, and manager had assembled in her living room. The news clip had already gone viral, spawning speculation across social media about why Scarlett Johansson would be sneaking into an abandoned building. "We need to issue a statement immediately," her publicist urged. "Something vague but plausible. Location scouting for an upcoming film, perhaps." "No," Scarlett said firmly. "No misdirection. But I'm not ready to reveal the full truth either. Not without consulting the people who would be affected. Scarlett, her manager said cautiously, whatever you're involved with, if it's happening, in a building slated for demolition, there could be serious legal implications. I understand the risks, she replied, but this isn't about me. It's about people who served this country and have been forgotten. I just need time to figure out how to protect them. After a heated discussion, they crafted a brief statement, acknowledging that Scarlett had been at the building but declining to elaborate for privacy reasons. It would buy them a day or two at most before the pressure for answers became overwhelming. Meanwhile, across town, Sarah Chen was experiencing the most intense day of her professional life. Her editor had moved her story to the top of the hour, and her phone was buzzing constantly with calls from larger news outlets seeking additional information. I need more, her editor demanded. Why is she there? Who's she meeting? Is it drugs? A love affair? Some weird celebrity cult? I'm working on it, Sarah promised, though she had little beyond her initial observations. She had returned to the building after filing her report, but it appeared deserted. No lights, no movement, no sign of the activity she had glimpsed previously. As Sarah sat at her desk reviewing property records and satellite images of the building, an email arrived from an anonymous address. The subject line read simply, "What? You don't know about the Morrison Building." Intrigued, she opened it to find a single line of text. Not everyone has a home to go to when the cameras stop rolling. Some heroes sleep on the streets. Attached was a historical document, the original blueprint of the Morrison Building, dating from 1943. It showed not only the main structure but also a network of tunnels connecting it to several other buildings in the area. The tunnels were labeled Civil Defense Emergency Routes. Sarah stared at the screen, pieces clicking into place. The Morrison Building wasn't just an abandoned structure, it was connected to a hidden network beneath the streets of downtown Los Angeles. But why would someone send her this information? And what did it have to do with Scarlett Johansson or homeless heroes? She saved the document and began researching the building's history more deeply. Originally constructed during World War II, it had served briefly as a processing center for returning veterans before becoming corporate offices. The tunnels had been designed as bomb shelters and evacuation routes during the Cold War era. Sarah's journalistic instincts told her she was onto something significant. Something that went beyond a celebrity gossip piece. But she needed more information, and she knew just where to start looking. At the bunker, Marcus Johnson was conducting a security assessment with the skeleton crew that remained. The basement level, with its access to the tunnel network, had become their most valuable asset. We've secured the main entrance and all ground floor access points, he reported to Elena. Security cameras show increased activity outside, mostly media and curious onlookers. No sign of official intervention yet. Elena nodded, checking. Items off a clipboard. Food supplies? Sufficient for 2 weeks at current occupancy levels. We've distributed emergency packs to all off-site locations. Medical? Doc is making rounds to all safe houses to check on residents with chronic conditions. We have a volunteer nurse practitioner covering here. Their efficient exchange was interrupted by Maya's arrival in the command center they had established in what was once the building's mail room. We have incoming, she announced tersely. Woman with a press badge checking out the perimeter. She's being more methodical than the others, actually examining the fence line. Marcus moved to a laptop connected to their security cameras. That's her, the reporter from this morning, Sarah Chen. Should we engage? Elena asked. Marcus shook his head firmly. Absolutely not. We maintain the empty building appearance. No contact with media until we have a coordinated strategy. Maya lingered uncharacteristically hesitant. I've been thinking about something. Maybe this exposure isn't entirely bad. Elena and Marcus turned to her with surprise. Hear me out, Maya continued. We've been invisible for so long. The building, the people inside it, the whole broken system. Maybe being seen is the first step to actually changing something. Being seen also makes us vulnerable, Marcus countered. Not everyone here can afford that visibility. I know, Maya acknowledged. But staying invisible hasn't exactly solved our problems either. Their discussion was interrupted by a secure call from Scarlett. Elena put it on speaker. "The media pressure is building," Scarlett reported. "My team is holding them off for now, but we need a plan. I've been thinking about approaching Whitaker directly, laying out the situation, seeing if there's a possibility of incorporating the bunker officially into his development plans." "That's a massive risk," Marcus said. "If he refuses, we lose our anonymity and our leverage." "True," Scarlett conceded. "But I met him last night at a gala. There might be an opening there. He's very concerned with his public image." "Which means he might see us as a PR opportunity rather than people in need," Elena pointed out. "I've sent someone to research Whitaker more deeply," Scarlett said. "Personal history, family connections, anything that might give us insight into how he might respond. I should have that information by tomorrow." After the call ended, Elena looked at the others gravely. "We need to prepare for all scenarios. If we're going to be forced into the light, we should do it on our terms." Outside the Morrison Building, Sarah Chen was methodically documenting every detail she could observe. The structure appeared abandoned as reported, but small inconsistencies caught her attention. A ventilation fan that seemed newer than the surrounding fixtures, subtle paths worn in the dust around entry points, a security camera disguised as a broken light fixture. As she photographed the building from various angles, her phone rang with an unlisted number. "Ms. Chen, this is Officer James Rivera, LAPD. I understand you've been reporting on the Morrison Building." Sarah tensed. "That's correct. Is there a problem?" "Not exactly. I'm actually the responding officer to a call received about that building yesterday evening. A concerned citizen reported seeing a woman who appeared to be Scarlett Johansson entering the premises, possibly in distress." "And what did you find?" Sarah asked, instantly alert. "That's the curious thing," Officer Rivera replied. "When we arrived, the building appeared completely vacant. No signs of recent occupancy, no indications of distress. Standard protocol would be to file it as a false alarm, but something felt off." He paused. "I'm contacting you because I believe there may be more to this story, and from your reporting you seem to be pursuing it seriously." "I am," Sarah confirmed. "But why are you reaching out to me specifically?" A long pause. "Let's just say I have a personal interest in veterans' welfare. If you find out what's really happening in that building, I'd appreciate being kept in the loop, unofficially." Before Sarah could press further, Rivera ended the call, leaving her with more questions than answers. But one thing was becoming clear. There was much more to the Morrison Building than an abandoned structure or a celebrity mystery. Someone was protecting a secret inside those walls, a secret connected to veterans somehow. Her reporter's instinct told her this could be the story that finally elevated her career. But another part of her, the part that remembered her own father's struggles after returning from Desert Storm, wondered if some secrets deserved protection. As evening approached, Scarlett received an urgent message from her investigator. The information about Thomas Whitaker was both surprising and potentially valuable. His company biography listed his father as William Whitaker, former president of Pacific National Bank. But deeper research revealed a different story. William Whitaker had actually been William Whitaker Jr., his father. Thomas's grandfather was William Whitaker Sr., who had served in Korea and later suffered from what would now be recognized as PTSD. According to county records, the elder Whitaker had died in 1985 in a homeless shelter, despite his son's considerable wealth. This family history had been carefully scrubbed from public records, but the investigator had found obituaries and public assistance documents that confirmed the connection. Thomas Whitaker came from a family with direct experience of veteran homelessness, a fact he had apparently chosen to bury. Scarlett weighed this information carefully. It could potentially provide leverage in negotiations with Whitaker, but it would be approaching emotional manipulation. Still, with the future of the bunker and its residents at stake, she needed every advantage. As night fell over Los Angeles, the various players in this unfolding drama made their preparations. Sarah Chen compiled her research, sensing she was on the verge of a breakthrough. Officer Rivera drove slowly past the Morrison Building. His thoughts on his own brother, who had returned from Afghanistan, changed in ways that no one had been prepared for. And in the bunker's command center, Marcus, Elena, and Maya plotted contingencies for the challenging days ahead. Scarlett stood on her balcony, looking out at the lights of the city she had called home for decades. The dog tags around her neck caught the moonlight as she made her decision. Tomorrow she would meet with Thomas Whitaker, not as a celebrity, seeking a favor, but as someone who understood that some battles continue long after the uniform comes off. The truth about the Morrison Building would soon emerge into the light, for better or worse. The only question was who would control the narrative, and at what cost. Word count, 6,150 words. Hook, 150 words. Introduction, 2,000 words, plus. Inciting incident, 2,000 words, plus. Early development, 2,000 words. Dawn broke over Los Angeles with the promise of consequences. Scarlett had barely slept, her mind cycling through scenarios, contingencies, and potential fallout. By 6 a.m., she had decided on a direct approach. Using her considerable influence, she arranged a private meeting with Thomas Whitaker at his downtown office for later that morning. As she dressed, she chose her wardrobe carefully, professional but not ostentatious. This meeting wasn't about Scarlett Johansson, the celebrity. It was about the future of the bunker and its residents. Still, she understood the power of perception and selected a tailored pantsuit that projected confidence and seriousness. Her phone buzzed with text from Elena, updating her on the situation at the bunker. The news coverage had expanded overnight, with celebrity gossip sites speculating wildly about why Scarlett was visiting an abandoned building. Some guessed film location scouting, others suggested secret romance, and a few even proposed supernatural interests. None had uncovered the truth yet. News vans outside the perimeter, Elena's message read. Still maintaining empty building protocol. Marcus concerned about Doc, health declining with stress. Maya wants to meet with you before Whitaker. Scarlett replied quickly. Tell Maya I'll stop by. How are residents at safe houses holding up? Stressed but safe. Some want to return despite risks. This was their home. That last message hit Scarlett hard. For many veterans at the bunker, the community they had built represented the first stable environment they'd known since leaving service. Disrupting that stability, even temporarily, could trigger cascading crises for those most vulnerable. She arrived at the Morrison Building via a less obvious route, using the service entrance of a neighboring structure that connected through the basement tunnel system. Marcus met her at the junction point, his expression grim. We've implemented communication blackout protocols, he informed her as they moved through the dimly lit tunnel. No electronic devices inside the building, minimal power usage, all external contact through secure channels only. How many people remained inside? Scarlett asked. 7. Essential personnel only. Everyone else is distributed across safe houses. When they reached the bunker, Scarlett was struck by how different it felt. The usual bustle of community life replaced by tense silence, empty spaces where people should be. In the command center, Maya and Elena were reviewing maps of the tunnel system, marking potential evacuation routes. You're really going to meet with Whitaker? Maya asked without preamble. Yes. In about an hour. Maya hesitated, then handed Scarlett her sketchbook. Take this. Show him what he's actually destroying. Scarlett opened the book to find a series of powerful images, veterans supporting each other, the community kitchen serving meals, a group therapy session, Doc teaching younger veterans to play chess. The drawings captured the humanity of the bunker in ways words couldn't. These are extraordinary, Scarlett said, genuinely moved. Are you sure you want me to share them? I've been thinking about what visibility means, Maya replied. Maybe it's time people saw us as we really are, not as statistics or stereotypes. She took a deep breath. And I'll go with you to the meeting. That's a significant risk, Marcus cautioned. It's my choice, Maya said firmly. I flew combat missions in 2 war zones. I can handle a real estate developer. Elena looked between them. Having a veteran actually present might make a difference, but Maya, once you're visible, there's no going back to anonymity. I know. I'm ready. Scarlett studied Maya's resolute expression, recognizing the courage this decision required. Okay, but we go in with a clear strategy. For the next 40 minutes, they refined their approach. They would appeal first to Whitaker's business sense, positioning the bunker as an opportunity for positive PR rather than a liability. If that failed, they would carefully introduce what they knew about his family history, not as blackmail but as a personal connection to the cause. As they prepared to leave, Doc appeared, moving slowly with his oxygen tank in tow. His condition had worsened with the stress of recent days. "Wanted to give you this before you went," he said, handing Scarlett a faded photograph. It showed a younger Doc in uniform standing beside her grandfather. "Found it in my old albums. Thought it might remind you what you're fighting for." Scarlett stared at the image, her throat tight. "You knew my grandfather?" 58th MASH Unit, 69 to 70. He got hit during a firefight near Cam Low. I patched him up." Doc's weathered face softened with memory. "Good man. Talked about his granddaughter all the time, had your picture in his wallet." This unexpected connection left Scarlett momentarily speechless. She carefully tucked the photograph into her jacket pocket next to the dog tags. "I'll bring this back to you," she promised. Doc nodded. "See that you do. And remember, Whitaker's just a man. You've faced tougher audiences." 30 minutes later, Scarlett and Maya sat in the reception area of Whitaker Development's downtown headquarters. The glass and steel office occupied the top 3 floors of a skyscraper with commanding views of the city. Awards and architectural models decorated the space, silently proclaiming the company's success. Whitaker's assistant, clearly flustered by Scarlett's unexpected visit, had been unable to deny her request for a meeting. Now they waited, Maya's sketchbook and Scarlett's carefully prepared notes ready. "Ms. Johansson." Thomas Whitaker emerged from his office, surprise evident despite his practiced smile. "This is unexpected. I enjoyed our conversation at the gala, but I typically require appointments for business discussions." "This couldn't wait," Scarlett replied, rising to shake his hand. "Thank you for seeing us. This is Maya Jackson, a helicopter pilot who served 3 tours in Afghanistan and Iraq." Whitaker's expression shifted subtly as he processed Maya's presence. "Ms. Jackson, thank you for your service." The words sounded automatic, perfunctory. "Please come in." His corner office was impeccably designed, with floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist furnishings. Models of his various development projects lined the shelves, including a prominent display of the Meridian project that would replace the Morrison Building. "I assume this is about the news reports," Whitaker said once they were seated. "I must admit I was intrigued to learn you had some interest in that old building. It's scheduled for demolition next month." "That's precisely why we're here," Scarlett replied. She gestured to Maya, who opened her sketchbook. For the next 15 minutes, they explained the bunker, its history, purpose, and the community it served. Whitaker listened without interruption, his expression carefully neutral as Maya showed him her drawings of daily life inside the building. "So you're operating an unauthorized shelter in a condemned building," he summarized when they finished. "While I appreciate the intention, surely you understand the liability issues. That structure isn't safe." "We've made it safe," Maya countered. "Veterans with engineering and construction backgrounds have reinforced critical areas. We have proper sanitation, fire safety protocols, emergency response plans. Nevertheless, it's illegal occupancy of private property," Whitaker said, his tone growing firmer. "Property that my company has legally purchased for development." Scarlett leaned forward. "Mr. Whitaker, we're not here to challenge your legal rights to the building. We're here to propose a partnership." She outlined a concept that had formed during their preparation, incorporating a legitimate Veterans Support Center into the Meridian project, creating a model of inclusive development that would generate positive publicity and community goodwill. "Your company already commits to community benefit elements in your projects," she pointed out. "This would be an extension of that philosophy, with the added benefit of addressing veteran homelessness, a cause that polls extremely well with the public." Whitaker's brow furrowed slightly. It's an interesting concept, but it would require significant redesign. The Meridian project already includes the mandatory percentage of affordable housing units. With all due respect, Maya interjected, those units will still be priced far beyond what most veterans living on disability can afford. We're talking about people who served their country and came back broken, physically or mentally. The system failed them. The current bunker provides not just housing but community, support services, and purpose. Whitaker stood and walked to the window, looking out over the city he was helping to reshape. Ms. Johansson, Ms. Jackson, I understand your passion for this cause, but business is business. The Meridian project represents a $400 million investment. The returns are calculated based on specific square footage allocations. What you're proposing would significantly alter those projections. Scarlett had anticipated this response. We've prepared some numbers on potential tax incentives, corporate sponsorships, and positive PR valuation that could offset those changes. She handed him a folder with financial projections her team had worked through the night to compile. Whitaker accepted it but didn't open it. I'll review these, of course, but I need to be candid. This project has been in development for 5 years. Construction begins in 30 days. Major changes at this stage are highly problematic. Maya and Scarlett exchanged a glance. It was time for their final approach. There's something else you should know, Scarlett said carefully. Something about why this particular cause might resonate with you personally. Whitaker's posture stiffened almost imperceptibly. And what might that be? Your grandfather, William Whitaker Sr., he served in Korea, and later in his life he experienced homelessness despite his son's success. The change in Whitaker's demeanor was immediate. His professional facade cracked, revealing a flash of something raw beneath: anger, pain, or perhaps both. You've been investigating my family, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. We've been researching everyone connected to the building's future, Scarlett corrected gently, and in doing so, we discovered this connection. My family history is irrelevant to this discussion, Whitaker said sharply. And frankly, Ms. Johansson, using it as leverage is distasteful. It's not leverage, Maya said, unexpectedly taking the lead. It's context. Many of us at the bunker have family who don't understand what we've been through, who can't bridge the gap between their world and ours. She hesitated, then continued more softly. Sometimes those divides become permanent before we find a way across. Whitaker returned to his desk, visibly struggling to maintain his composure. My grandfather and father had a complicated relationship. My involvement came too late to make a difference. It's not too late to make a difference for others, Scarlett suggested. A tense silence filled the office. Finally, Whitaker pressed his intercom. Janet, clear my schedule for the next hour. He turned back to them. I want to see this place today. No media, no entourage. That can be arranged, Scarlett agreed, feeling the first cautious stirring of hope. To be absolutely clear, Whitaker added, I'm making no commitments, but I will look at your operation firsthand before making any final decisions. As they prepared to leave, his phone rang. After a brief conversation, Whitaker turned to them with renewed tension. That was my security team. There's a reporter asking questions at the Morrison Building. Site right now. Sarah Chen from Channel 8. She's telling workers she has evidence of current occupancy. Maya cursed under her breath. If she publishes that, it could compromise our safe houses too. We need to move quickly, Scarlett said. She turned to Whitaker. The tour needs to happen now, before this story breaks wide open. Whitaker hesitated, only briefly before nodding. My car is downstairs. We can be there in 15 minutes. As they rode the elevator down to the parking garage, Scarlett texted Elena a coded warning. Package arriving. Prepare for inspection. The bunker's team would need to quickly prepare for Whitaker's visit while maintaining security protocols. In the sleek black SUV, Maya sat rigid with tension beside Scarlett in the back seat, while Whitaker made calls from the front passenger seat. rescheduling meetings without explanation. The city passed by outside the tinted windows, gleaming new developments alongside aging structures, the visible stratification of urban prosperity and neglect. "Why did you name it the bunker?" Whitaker asked unexpectedly, ending his last call. "We didn't," Maya replied. "The veterans did. A bunker is where you go when you're under attack, where you find safety with your unit. When everything outside is trying to kill you, the bunker keeps you alive." Whitaker nodded slightly, his expression thoughtful as they approached downtown. Outside the Morrison Building, Sarah Chen was methodically documenting every detail she could observe, occasionally consulting the tunnel blueprint she'd received. Her reporting instincts told her there was something significant happening here, something beyond a celebrity mystery. As she examined a section of fence that appeared recently disturbed, a black SUV with tinted windows pulled up nearby. Her curiosity piqued when she recognized Scarlett Johansson emerging from the vehicle, accompanied by a woman she didn't recognize and, most surprisingly, Thomas Whitaker himself. Sarah raised her camera, capturing the moment. Whatever was happening inside that building had just become considerably more interesting. Scarlett noticed the reporter immediately. "Ms. Chen," she called, deciding that acknowledgement was better than attempted avoidance. "I understand you've been looking into this building." Sarah approached, recorder in hand. "Ms. Johansson, I have to say this is an unexpected development. Care to comment on why you're visiting an abandoned building scheduled for demolition, accompanied by the very developer who plans to tear it down?" "Not at this time," Scarlett replied smoothly. "Mr. Whitaker and I are discussing potential creative uses for historical structures. That's all I can share currently." Thomas Whitaker stepped forward, his business persona firmly in place. "Ms. Chen, is it? Whitaker Development values community input on all our projects. Today's visit is simply part of our thorough assessment process." Sarah clearly wasn't satisfied with these vague answers, but found herself effectively stonewalled by two people experienced in managing public narratives. "I'll be very interested in your assessment findings, Mr. Whitaker, especially regarding the current occupants of this supposedly vacant building." Maya tensed beside Scarlett, but maintained her silence as they moved toward the side entrance, leaving the reporter watching from beyond the fence. "She knows something," Whitaker observed, quietly as they reached the door. "Everyone will know everything soon enough," Scarlett replied. "The question is whether they'll hear a story about illegal squatters or a story about innovative community solutions to veteran homelessness." Marcus met them at the entrance, his military bearing evident as he formally greeted Whitaker. "Sir, we appreciate your willingness to see our operation firsthand." Inside, the bunker had been prepared for inspection, areas cleaned, operations normalized as much as possible with their reduced occupancy. Elena waited in what they called the common room, where residents typically gathered for meals and community activities. "Welcome to the bunker, Mr. Whitaker," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Elena Vasquez, social worker and program coordinator." "Ms. Vasquez." Whitaker looked around, taking in the communal kitchen, the modest but functional furniture, the bulletin board covered with job listings, support group schedules, and community announcements. "How long has this been operating?" "Almost 4 years," Elena answered. "It started with just 5 veterans who found shelter here during a cold snap. Gradually, it evolved into what you see today. Over the next 45 minutes, they guided Whitaker through the bunker's various areas, the partitioned sleeping spaces, the workshop where residents repaired donated items for resale, the computer center for job searches and education, the rudimentary medical station. Throughout the tour, Whitaker asked detailed, practical questions about operations, funding, and outcomes. His expression remained neutral, but Scarlett noticed he stopped to read every personal story posted on the walls, examining photographs of veterans who had transitioned through the bunker to stable housing and employment. In the art therapy room, Maya's drawings were prominently displayed alongside works by other veterans. Whitaker paused before a particularly powerful piece, a helicopter viewed from inside, the landscape below obscured by smoke and fire, a single hand reaching up from the chaos. "You created this?" he asked Maya. Yes, that was my second tour. A medical evacuation under fire near Kandahar. Whitaker studied the image silently before moving on. Their final stop was the basement level, where Doc was monitoring communications with the safe houses. At 78, his frail appearance contrasted sharply with the vital role he played in operations. "Mr. Whitaker," Doc greeted him, rising slowly with his oxygen tank. "You remind me of your grandfather. He had the same eyes." Whitaker stiffened. "You knew William Whitaker Sr.? Korea, 53. Different units, but we crossed paths at MASH 8063. Doc gestured to a chair. "Sit a minute. You've seen the facility. Now let me tell you why it matters." To everyone's surprise, Whitaker complied, sitting across from the elderly veteran. For the next 15 minutes, Doc spoke simply but powerfully about what the bunker provided beyond basic shelter. Dignity, purpose, community, understanding, that couldn't be found in traditional systems. "The VA does what it can," Doc concluded, "but it's a bureaucracy dealing with unique human damage. Here we understand each other's nightmares without explanation. That's not something you can replicate with forms and appointments." As they prepared to leave, an alarm sounded, 3 short bursts followed by a long tone. Marcus immediately moved to a security monitor. "We have multiple police vehicles approaching the perimeter," he reported. "Someone filed a formal trespassing complaint." All eyes turned to Whitaker, who raised his hands defensively. "Not my doing. My company has a process for these matters." "It's the reporter," Elena realized. "She must have contacted authorities after seeing all of you enter." Marcus switched to another camera view. "LAPD, 2 units. Officer Rivera is with them." "Rivera?" Scarlett asked. "The officer who responded to the initial call about me?" "Yes. He seemed sympathetic previously, but with formal complaints and superior officers present, his options will be limited." Whitaker checked his watch. "How many people are currently in the building?" 7 plus the 3 of us, Marcus answered. "And the rest?" "Distributed across safe houses throughout the city, 37 individuals total." Whitaker nodded, seeming to reach a decision. "Ms. Vasquez, do you have formal non-profit status?" "Yes," Elena confirmed. "The bunker operates under Veterans Renaissance Project, a registered 501c3, but our occupancy here isn't sanctioned." "It is now," Whitaker stated. "As of this moment, the Veterans Renaissance Project has my permission as property owner to operate a temporary facility in this location." He turned to Scarlett. "Call your legal team. We need something in writing immediately." While Scarlett made the call, Whitaker drafted a simple permission document on his phone, dating it 2 weeks earlier. "This won't hold up to serious scrutiny," he admitted, "but it might buy us time." "Us?" Maya echoed, catching the shift in language. Whitaker met her gaze directly. "I'm not promising anything long-term yet, but I won't have veterans removed from shelter on my property, especially not in front of cameras." The document was quickly printed and signed just as knocking came at the main entrance. Marcus checked the security feed before opening the door to Officer Rivera and 2 additional police officers. "Good afternoon, officers." Marcus greeted them calmly. "How can we help you?" "We've received complaints about unauthorized occupancy of this building," the senior officer explained. "I understand this property is scheduled for demolition." "There's been a misunderstanding," Whitaker said, stepping forward. "I'm Thomas Whitaker, owner of this property through Whitaker Development Corporation. These individuals have authorization to be here." Scarlett stood in the Morrison Building's makeshift infirmary, the walls humming softly with the low murmur of portable fans and medical machines. Doc was resting in the worn recliner, an oxygen tube running to his nose. His collapse the previous night had sent ripples through the bunker. The community was already shaken by the looming threat of eviction, and now its elder, its quiet moral compass was bedridden. "His vitals are stable, but he needs a hospital," Elena whispered to Scarlett, pulling her aside. "This is beyond what we can handle here." Scarlett glanced at Doc, whose eyes fluttered open for a brief moment, meeting hers. He smiled faintly and gestured to the side table. There, next to a dog-eared chess manual, sat a dusty leather case. Scarlett opened it cautiously. Inside was a tarnished military medal, its ribbon faded, the inscription just barely legible. Thomas J. Whitaker Distinguished Service Cross. Thomas J. Whitaker, Scarlett read aloud, shocked. Elena, this is the same name. Elena's eyes widened. It can't be a coincidence. We have to get him to a hospital, but if we do, the press will know the bunker could be exposed. We don't have a choice anymore, Elena said. If he dies here? Scarlett nodded. They moved quickly, quietly. By mid-afternoon, Doc had been taken in an unmarked van to a private hospital, registered under an alias arranged by a sympathetic nurse Maya had once served with. Scarlett paced the hospital waiting room, wearing a nondescript jacket and a mask. Her phone buzzed. Sarah Chen. Scarlett Johansson photographed outside ER at private downtown hospital. Developing story. The accompanying photo was blurry but clear enough. Scarlett, holding Doc's arm, eyes hidden behind sunglasses. Damn it, Scarlett muttered. Sarah's story broke within the hour, hitting the feeds like a thunderclap. Scarlett Johansson spotted helping elderly man into hospital. Connection to abandoned building confirmed. It was sensationalized, speculative, but it placed Scarlett at the heart of a humanitarian mystery. Inside the bunker, tensions skyrocketed. Maya slammed her sketchbook shut. This is exactly what we didn't want. We couldn't let Doc die, Scarlett replied, even if it costs me my privacy. Elena entered, her face pale. You both need to see this. She turned on the portable projector. A grainy black and white photo from the 1970s appeared. Two men in uniform, standing side by side. One was Doc. The other bore a striking resemblance to Thomas Whitaker. That's his father, Scarlett said. The medal matches. Sarah Chen, sitting at her newsroom desk, pieced the puzzle together. She had requested veteran service records through expedited journalist channels. When the documents arrived, she sat stunned. Thomas J. Whitaker Sr., Vietnam War veteran, honorably discharged, MIA for years, died homeless in Los Angeles in 1988. Oh my God, she whispered. She cross-referenced tax records, property databases, and obituaries. One name popped up repeatedly. Robert Williamson, aka Doc. Sarah's article wrote itself. The Forgotten Father. Real estate mogul Thomas Whitaker's secret ties to veteran homelessness. Sarah hesitated. She could press publish. It would go viral instantly. But instead she called someone. Officer Rivera, she said. We need to talk. Back at Whitaker Development Headquarters, Thomas Whitaker paced his office, reading Sarah's email. The photos, the medals, the name. It was undeniable. His father had once been decorated, and later discarded. He remembered the man only in fragments. Cold eyes, unshaven, always leaving. His mother had erased him from Thomas's life by the time he was 10. Now, history returned like a ghost. Scarlett called. I know about your father, she said without preamble. Silence. I didn't know, Thomas said at last. He disappeared. My mother told me he abandoned us, that he was a drunk. He was a hero, and Doc was his friend. Thomas sighed. Why does this matter now? Because you're about to demolish the only home left to people like him, people who served then were discarded, like your father. You're using this as leverage. No. I'm offering you a chance to redeem a legacy you didn't know you had. He hung up. Meanwhile, Sarah Chen met with Officer Rivera in an empty downtown cafe. Her laptop sat between them. This article could ruin Whitaker, she said. It could also blow up the bunker. Rivera leaned back. Why come to me? Because I don't want to just break a story. I want to do something good with it. Rivera nodded. Then you need to meet someone. Come with me. He led her through back streets to a small community office. Inside, several veterans were sorting donated supplies. Rivera gestured to a wiry man with salt and pepper stubble. This is Curtis. He's one of the first bunker residents. Curtis looked Sarah up and down. You're the reporter? I am. I didn't know. I just saw a celebrity entering an old building. And now, you see us. Sarah nodded. What do you want me to do? Curtis exchanged a glance with Rivera, then handed her a petition. Dozens of signatures, names of veterans willing to be identified, stories to be shared. We want to be seen, but on our terms. You write it right, you write it fair. We'll talk. Back in her apartment, Scarlett opened the small safe behind her bookshelf. Inside was a photo of her grandfather and Doc, nearly identical to the one Doc had shown her. She hadn't realized how deep the connection ran. Her grandfather, Doc, Whitaker's father. 3 men bound by war and silence. Her assistant called. Scarlett, the studio wants a comment about the hospital photo. Draft this. Some causes are more important than careers. I stand with those who've been forgotten. That evening, Elena gathered the remaining residents of the bunker. She stood beneath a string of salvaged holiday lights in the mess hall. You've all heard by now. The press knows. Scarlett's name is out there. Doc's in the hospital. Whitaker's been confronted. Murmurs of concern. But we're not victims, Elena continued. We are a community. And now, we choose what comes next. Curtis stepped forward, holding the petition. We go public. Marcus frowned. Are you sure? Once, we're seen, we can't go back. I'm tired of hiding, Maya said. We're ghosts in our own city. Slowly, one by one, hands were raised. They would stand together. The next day, Scarlett received a call. Not from Whitaker, but his sister, Margaret. You don't know me, she said, but I saw the article, I saw the medal. My father gave that to his friend in Nam before he disappeared. We thought he died in a ditch. Turns out he died 3 blocks from my brother's office. Scarlett listened in silence. Tell Thomas, I remember Dad's stories. And if he won't honor them, I will. Later that day, Whitaker arrived unannounced at the hospital. He found Doc awake, weak but lucid. You're Thomas, Doc rasped. Whitaker nodded. You knew my father. Doc managed a faint smile. He loved you, you know. Bragged. About you, said you were smart. I didn't even know he died homeless. Doc gestured to the medal on the nightstand. That's why I kept it, so someone would remember. Outside the hospital, reporters swarmed. Scarlett emerged alone, shielding her eyes from flashes. Yes, I've been helping veterans at the Morrison Building, she said, voice firm. And I'm not the only one. There's a whole community in there, a community this city has ignored. Is it true the building is being demolished? A reporter shouted. Scarlett nodded. Unless we stop it. That night, the news ran a new headline. Scarlett Johansson confirms secret volunteer work, veterans at risk in LA development battle. But for once, the story wasn't about her. It was about them. And the twist? The man poised to destroy their home might be their last hope of saving it. Scarlett stood in the Morrison Building's makeshift infirmary, the walls humming softly with the low murmur of portable fans and medical machines. Doc was resting in the worn recliner, an oxygen tube running to his nose. His collapse the previous night had sent ripples through the bunker. The community was already shaken by the looming threat of eviction, and now its elder, its quiet moral compass, was bedridden. His vitals are stable, but he needs a hospital. Elena whispered to Scarlett, pulling her aside. This is beyond what we can handle here. Scarlett glanced at Doc, whose eyes fluttered open for a brief moment, meeting hers. He smiled faintly and gestured to the side table. There, next to a dog-eared chess manual, sat a dusty leather case. Scarlett opened it cautiously. Inside was a tarnished military medal, its ribbon faded, the inscription just barely legible. Thomas J. Whitaker, Distinguished Service Cross. Thomas J. Whitaker, Scarlett read aloud, shocked. Elena, this is the same name. Elena's eyes widened. It can't be a coincidence. We have to get him to a hospital, but if we do, the press will know. The bunker could be exposed. We don't have a choice anymore, Elena said. If he dies here? Scarlett nodded. They moved quickly, quietly. By mid-afternoon, Doc had been taken in an unmarked van to a private hospital, registered under an alias arranged by a sympathetic nurse Maya had once served with. Scarlett paced the hospital waiting room, wearing a nondescript jacket and a mask. Her phone buzzed. Sarah Chen, Scarlett Johansson photographed outside ER at private downtown hospital. Developing story. The accompanying photo was blurry but clear enough. Scarlett, holding Doc's arm, eyes hidden behind sunglasses. "Damn it," Scarlett muttered. Sarah's story broke within the hour, hitting the feeds like a thunderclap. Scarlett Johansson spotted helping elderly man into hospital. Connection to abandoned building confirmed. It was sensationalized, speculative, but it placed Scarlett at the heart of a humanitarian mystery. Inside the bunker, tensions skyrocketed. Maya slammed her sketchbook shut. "This is exactly what we didn't want." "We couldn't let Doc die," Scarlett replied, "even if it costs me my privacy." Elena entered, her face pale. "You both need to see this." She turned on the portable projector. A grainy black and white photo from the 1970s appeared. Two men in uniform, standing side by side. One was Doc, the other bore a striking resemblance to Thomas Whitaker. "That's his father," Scarlett said. "The metal matches." Sarah Chen, sitting at her newsroom desk, pieced the puzzle together. She had requested veteran service records through expedited journalist channels. When the documents arrived, she sat stunned. Thomas J. Whitaker Sr., Vietnam War veteran, honorably discharged, MIA for years, died homeless in Los Angeles in 1988. "Oh my God," she whispered. She cross-referenced tax records, property databases, and obituaries. One name popped up repeatedly: Robert Williamson, aka Doc. Sarah's article wrote itself. The Forgotten Father. Real estate mogul. Thomas Whitaker's secret ties to veteran homelessness. Sarah hesitated. She could press publish. It would go viral instantly. But instead she called someone. "Officer Rivera," she said. "We need to talk." Back at Whitaker Development Headquarters, Thomas Whitaker paced his office, reading Sarah's email. The photos, the medals, the name. It was undeniable. His father had once been decorated, and later, discarded. He remembered the man only in fragments, cold eyes, unshaven, always leaving. His mother had erased him from Thomas's life by the time he was 10. Now history returned like a ghost. Scarlett called. "I know about your father," she said without preamble. Silence. "I didn't know," Thomas said at last. "He disappeared. My mother told me he abandoned us, that he was a drunk. He was a hero, and Doc was his friend." Thomas sighed. "Why does this matter now?" "Because you're about to demolish the only home left to people like him. People who served, then were discarded, like your father. You're using this as leverage." "No, I'm offering you a chance to redeem a legacy you didn't know you had." Hung up. Meanwhile, Sarah Chen met with Officer Rivera in an empty downtown cafe. Her laptop sat between them. "This article could ruin Whitaker," she said. "It could also blow up the bunker." Rivera leaned back. "Why come to me?" "Because I don't want to just break a story. I want to do something good with it." Rivera nodded. "Then you need to meet someone. Come with me." He led her through back streets to a small community office. Inside, several veterans were sorting donated supplies. Rivera gestured to a wiry man with salt and pepper stubble. "This is Curtis. He's one of the first bunker residents." Curtis looked Sarah up and down. "You're the reporter?" "I am. I didn't know. I just saw a celebrity entering an old building. And now you see us." Sarah nodded. "What do you want me to do?" Curtis exchanged a glance with Rivera, then handed her a petition. Dozens of signatures. Names of veterans willing to be identified. Stories to be shared. We want to be seen, but on our terms. You write it right, you write it fair, we'll talk. Back in her apartment, Scarlett opened the small safe behind her bookshelf. Inside was a photo of her grandfather and Doc, nearly identical to the one Doc had shown her. She hadn't realized how deep the connection ran. Her grandfather, Doc, Whitaker's father. 3 men bound by war and silence. Her assistant called. Scarlett, the studio wants a comment about the hospital photo. Draft this. Some causes are more important than careers. I stand with those who've been forgotten. That evening, Elena gathered the remaining residents of the bunker. She stood beneath a string of salvaged holiday lights in the mess hall. You've all heard by now. The press knows. Scarlett's name is out there. Doc's in the hospital. Whitaker's been confronted. Murmurs of concern. But we're not victims, Elena continued. We are a community. And now, we choose what comes next. Curtis stepped forward, holding the petition. We go public. Marcus frowned. Are you sure? Once, we're seen, we can't go back. I'm tired of hiding, Maya said. We're ghosts in our own city. Slowly, one by one, hands were raised. They would stand together. The next day, Scarlett received a call. Not from Whitaker, but his sister, Margaret. You don't know me, she said. But I saw the article. I saw the medal. My father gave that to his friend in Nam before he disappeared. We thought he died in a ditch. Turns out he died 3 blocks from my brother's office. Scarlett listened in silence. Tell Thomas I remember Dad's stories. And if he won't honor them, I will. Later that day, Whitaker arrived unannounced at the hospital. He found Doc awake, weak but lucid. You're Thomas, Doc rasped. Whitaker nodded. You knew my father. Doc managed a faint smile. He loved you, you know. Bragged about you. Said you were smart. I didn't even know he died homeless. Doc gestured to the medal on the nightstand. That's why I kept it, so someone would remember. Outside the hospital, reporters swarmed. Scarlett emerged alone, shielding her eyes from flashes. Yes, I've been helping veterans at the Morrison Building, she said, voice firm. And I'm not the only one. There's a whole community in there, a community this city has ignored. Is it true the building is being demolished? A reporter shouted. Scarlett nodded. Unless we stop it. That night, the news ran a new headline. Scarlett Johansson confirms secret volunteer work, veterans at risk in LA development battle. But for once, the story wasn't about her. It was about them. And the twist? The man poised to destroy their home might be their last hope of saving it. Even as the crowd outside City Hall slowly dispersed, the energy lingered. The victory was real, but it came with conditions. 6 months, compliance reviews, coordinated, meetings between developers, city officials, and veterans. The Morrison Building was not yet safe, but it was finally visible. That night, the bunker came back to life. For the first time in weeks, most residents returned. The lights, dimmed and flickering as always, illuminated tired faces made brighter by hope. In the mess hall, Maya hung a large print of the new blueprint. Someone brought a boombox and soft music filtered through the air. Scarlett sat with Elena, their shoulders touching. I don't know how to describe today, Scarlett said. You don't have to, Elena replied. We felt it. Curtis stood beside the memorial board reading new names aloud. Each was met with quiet reverence. When he reached the final one, Whitaker, Thomas J. Sr., there was a pause. Thomas himself entered the room in time to hear it. A few veterans looked up, gauging his presence, but none objected. He walked to the wall and pressed his hand against the name. He would have liked this place, he said. Even more now. Doc laughed softly. He helped us build the idea of it before it had walls. The following morning, media outlets ran headlines of redemption and reckoning. From condos to community. Whitaker Development reshapes legacy with Veterans Partnership. Scarlett Johansson trades spotlight for shelter advocacy. The forgotten building that remembered everyone else. Talk shows requested interviews. Panels formed. Government watchdogs issued statements of support. An anonymous donor pledged $2 million to the renovation effort. In the middle of it all, Scarlett met with her publicist. You realize this could change your entire public image? Good. Maybe it's time it did. And the studio wants to fast-track that miniseries you're producing, the one about post-war trauma. Scarlett smiled. Only if Maya signs on as consultant. Maya, meanwhile, was overwhelmed with requests from architecture schools and veteran art programs, but she declined most. She remained focused on the bunker. In the quiet of her bunk, she finished a new sketch. A rising phoenix built from shattered helmets and medals flying out of the Morrison Building. She labeled it Reclamation. The first collaborative meeting between Whitaker Development and the veterans team happened 2 days later. Elena chaired it. Margaret Whitaker joined the board of the newly minted Morrison Veterans Foundation. Thomas pledged his company's design teams and financial backing. This time, he said, we build with them, not over them. Sarah Chen published her long-form piece a week later. It didn't lead with Scarlett. It opened with Doc's story and ended with Maya's drawing. The final lines read, "Some buildings hold ghosts. This one held hope. In a city of forgetting, it remembered what mattered." On the 30-day mark, a ceremonial event was held. Local officials gathered at the Morrison Building. The old condemned signs were taken down, replaced with a new temporary banner, future home of the Morrison Veterans Community Center. Scarlett stood next to Maya as they pulled the cover away. Thomas Whitaker, flanked by Margaret and Curtis, gave a speech that concluded with a single line. "My father died invisible. Today we honor all those like him by never looking away again." Maya added quietly, "We found each other in the rubble. Now we build from it." And so the Morrison Building stood, not as a ruin, not as a casualty of progress, but as the first monument of its kind, not built to remember war, but to heal from it. The first day of spring dawned over Los Angeles in pale blue and soft gold. For the first time in decades, the Morrison Building had scaffolding around it not for demolition, but restoration. Early morning sun slanted through newly unboarded windows, revealing old brick and new promise. Inside, the air buzzed with coordinated energy, the hum of power tools, the crackle of radios, and the sounds of laughter. Maya Jackson stood just inside the front entrance, boots dusty, sleeves rolled up. Her sketchbook was tucked under one arm, and the other held a blueprint now stained with coffee, paint, and time. She watched as veterans and volunteers moved beams and drywall, carrying the future into place. Across the atrium, Elena barked cheerful instructions, clipboard in hand. "Careful with that panel. That wall's getting the mural." In the northwest corner, a team of artists, most of them veterans, painted a massive phoenix rising from rubble. The feathers were made of war medals, military insignia, and rust-colored flame. A banner above read, "Reclaim, Rebuild, Remember." At a side table, Doc rested in a wheelchair. He looked thinner than before, but wore a smile that reached his eyes. "Didn't think I'd live to see the day," he muttered, sipping lukewarm coffee. "But damn if we didn't turn ghosts into architects." 6 months earlier, the city council vote had changed everything, not just for the bunker, but for Scarlett Johansson, for Thomas Whitaker, and for every soul who had called that building sanctuary. Scarlett had shifted her public life into a new gear. Interviews once centered around film roles now veered toward policy reform and grassroots advocacy. She co-founded the Morrison Foundation for Veteran Wellness with Elena, funding housing initiatives, trauma counseling, and job programs. Tabloids had dubbed her transformation Scarlett 2.0, but she dismissed the buzz. She still attended premieres, but often with Maya or Doc by her side instead of a stylist or PR rep. When asked why, her answer was simple. If you have a spotlight, use it to illuminate what matters. Her Malibu home became a quiet place again. Her calendar now included site visits and team meetings instead of press junkets and rehearsals. She still acted, but with purpose, not obligation. Maya's life transformed in tandem. Her design for the new Morrison Center had received awards from 3 different architectural organizations before a single wall was complete. Harvard and MIT invited her to speak, but she turned down the limelight. "I design for survivors, not students," she told one eager dean. Still, she agreed to one exhibition, Reclamation, hosted by the Los Angeles Museum of Contemporary Art. Her drawings, the mechanical precision of helicopters alongside gut-wrenching memories, lined the gallery in chronological order. The final piece was a massive ink rendering of the Morrison Building mid-restoration, each brick carrying the ghost of a veteran's name. Thousands came, hundreds cried, and Maya, standing in the corner, simply observed. Afterward, she told Scarlett, "I didn't expect it to feel so quiet." "That's because you're used to fighting," Scarlett said, "not being seen." Thomas Whitaker became a more complicated figure in the media. Some accused him of opportunism, others praised his evolution. He largely ignored them. Instead, he focused on restructuring his company. He appointed Margaret as co-chair, established a permanent community review board, and transferred ownership of the Morrison site to a non-profit trust. The condos still went up around the area, but so did low-income units, clinics, and small business spaces reserved for veteran-run enterprises. When asked by a local reporter whether this shift was redemption, he responded, "No. It's realignment. I was building cities without hearts. That ends now." Sarah Chen's feature article had gone national. Syndicated in over 40 publications, her story sparked local policy changes and forced broader discussions around homelessness, historical preservation, and post-service care. Her inbox overflowed. She received offers from national networks, a book deal, and an award nomination, but she turned most of it down. Instead, she became an advisor on a new journalism fellowship focused on long-form human interest reporting. In a podcast interview, she said, "This wasn't just a scoop, it was a mirror. And the people I met in that building? They held it up to the rest of us." By summer, the Morrison Veterans Community Center was nearing completion. The grand opening was scheduled for August 15th, the same day Doc and Scarlett's grandfather had first met during the Vietnam War. A subtle tribute, chosen by Doc. "Thought we'd tie the past to the present," he told Maya. "That's how you make it matter." Preparations moved at full speed. Maya oversaw final designs. Elena coordinated volunteers. Thomas secured new grants. Scarlett worked press and promotion. Curtis curated a wall of letters written by veterans from around the country. The bunker had become a hub, not a hideout. The morning of the opening dawned warm and clear. Banners lined the street. Flags fluttered. The sidewalk filled with people before the stage was even set. Doc arrived early, wearing a pressed blazer and his military pins. Scarlett met him at the curb and wheeled him forward. "Front row or bust," she said. Sarah stood beside a camera crew, quietly recording every detail. Maya checked the mural one last time, her fingers brushing the last stroke of crimson. Curtis welcomed a group of veterans from San Diego, guiding them through the new facility. Marcus handed out programs. The air vibrated with purpose. At noon, Elena took the stage. 6 years ago, we unlocked the side door of this building for the first time. Today, we open its front doors to the world. Thunderous applause. Scarlett followed. She spoke simply, with tears in her eyes. "This place taught me that stories don't end where the credits roll. They continue in small acts of kindness, in brave choices, in second chances. This building isn't just saved. It's reborn." Thomas stepped up next. He looked out over the crowd, then down at a photograph of his father. He was invisible. Not anymore. Neither are any of you. Maya closed the ceremony by unveiling the mural. Doc raised his fist. The crowd rose. 3 months later, the Morrison Center housed 40 full-time residents. It operated a clinic, a legal aid desk, a job training hub, and hosted weekly art therapy classes. Scarlett's foundation continued to fund similar projects in Oakland and Detroit. A visitor from the Department of Veterans Affairs called the model the most humane and replicable transitional program in the state. Late one night, Maya sat alone in the art room. On the walls, dozens of sketches, some hers, many not. One new drawing caught her eye, a childlike crayon depiction of a house, a garden, and a smiling figure labeled, "Me." She turned it over. No name. Just a date. She smiled. Scarlett visited the center weekly. Sometimes she led film nights. Other times she just listened. One Thursday she found herself sitting beside a new arrival, a young man named Reggie who hadn't spoken since his first day. "You ever watch old movies?" she asked. He nodded. "Casablanca or Die Hard?" He smiled faintly. They watched Casablanca together that night. Reggie cried quietly at the last scene. Scarlett held his hand. Doc passed away quietly in his sleep that fall. His memorial service filled the center. Veterans, city leaders, and strangers alike attended. Scarlett gave the eulogy. He built something, with memory and faith, something permanent in a world that forgets too easily. The memorial wall was updated. One more name etched at the top: Williamson Robert Doc. Winter came. Rain washed the streets outside. Inside, the Morrison Center glowed with warmth and light. Scarlett, Maya, Elena, and Thomas met for coffee in the new lounge. It had become their ritual. "So what now?" Thomas asked. "We keep building," Elena said. Maya nodded. "And remembering." Scarlett looked toward the wall of photos, each one a chapter of resilience, and never let them disappear again. Outside, traffic passed. Rain fell, but the light in the Morrison Veterans Community Center stayed on, a beacon, a promise kept. Spring turned to summer, and with it came a steady rhythm. What had once been a lifeline for a hidden few had become a model for many. Cities across the country began sending representatives to the Morrison Veterans Community Center. There were inquiries from Seattle, Philadelphia, even as far as Miami. Not all were immediately replicable, but the philosophy had planted itself. Meet people where they are, and give them more than shelter. Give them a home, a voice, and a future. One afternoon in early June, Sarah Chen sat across from Scarlett in the shaded courtyard garden, where lavender and rosemary grew between cracked concrete pavers that veterans had chosen to keep. A deliberate reminder that healing didn't mean erasure. "I think I want to write the book," Sarah said, "but I don't want to center it on you." "Good," Scarlett replied with a smirk. "Make it about them." Sarah nodded. "I think the story starts with a door that was always locked, and the moment someone found a way in." Scarlett glanced toward the mural where the phoenix had taken on richer tones from weathering and touch. "That sounds about right." Thomas Whitaker, after resigning from day-to-day leadership at Whitaker Development, began teaching part-time at a local college. His course, Ethics in Urban Development, quickly became popular. He opened the semester with an admission: "Spent half my life building monuments to profit. The second half I plan to build monuments to meaning." He met with city planners weekly, advocating for incentive programs that encouraged developers to include community housing and veteran services. His influence shifted how people talked about urban renewal. One policy analyst later wrote, "The Morrison Center didn't just save a building, it recalibrated the compass for how cities can care." On the anniversary of the original police raid, the community hosted a candlelight vigil. Elena led the event, standing before a crowd gathered under string lights in a paper lantern installation, crafted by veterans and children together. This building was once called a hazard, a threat. It was scheduled for destruction. But we learned that demolition is a choice, not just of buildings, but of people. Today we choose to preserve, to protect, to honor. Afterward, candles were floated in a makeshift pond fashioned from a large fountain basin. Each flickering light held a name. Maya found herself watching the reflection of the mural in the water. "What are you thinking?" Scarlett asked beside her. "That for the first time in years," Maya said, "I can breathe." The center's programs expanded. Scarlett recruited former Hollywood colleagues to teach creative arts workshops. Marcus and Curtis launched a job placement initiative connecting skilled veterans with companies through a network built on trust, not pity. One day, a young woman arrived at the front desk with a duffel bag and no appointment. She gave only her name, Alex. Maya met her in the intake room, offered water, listened. Alex had been discharged 8 months earlier. PTSD, burnout, isolation. She had read about the Morrison Center online. Wasn't sure it was real. "Is this a shelter?" she asked. Maya smiled gently. "It's whatever you need it to be." Alex stayed. She began painting. 2 months later, her abstract piece of blue flames and steel was added to the north hallway. Reggie, once too silent to speak, now helped run the film night. He wrote his first screenplay in a donated laptop room set up by a local nonprofit. Scarlett promised to read every page. In a small corner of the library, one could now find his handwritten quote, pinned to a bulletin board. "Silence is not weakness. It is the soil from which strong voices grow." Autumn returned. Another wave of new residents arrived. The bunker, now a nickname held with pride, was full again. Elena announced they would begin planning for Phase 2, the expansion of the center's services to an adjacent building Thomas had quietly purchased and donated. "We need to think bigger," she said, "because the need doesn't stop." Maya sketched a connecting breezeway between the buildings. "We'll call it the bridge," she said. "Symbolic, you know?" Scarlett nodded. Between then and now, them and us. At the winter board meeting, Scarlett stepped down from her executive role at the foundation. "It needs to live beyond my name," she said. "The story started with a spotlight. It should end in shared hands." Margaret Whitaker became chair. Maya took on a formal title as Director of Design and Cultural Vision. Elena accepted the role of Executive Director. Scarlett remained on the board, but with less visibility. She wanted it that way. 1 year to the day after the grand opening, the new sign was unveiled. Morrison Veterans Community Center below it in brass, in memory of those who served, in service to those who remain. Scarlett stood at the back of the crowd. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The moment spoke for itself. Nearby, a small child tugged on Maya's sleeve. "Did you build this?" Maya looked down, then around. We all did. Together. The girl grinned. "It's really pretty." Later that day, Scarlett visited Doc's tree, a young oak planted in the memorial garden. She left a single coin beneath it, the challenge coin he had once carried, now worn smooth from years in his pocket. She whispered, "You did good, Doc." We all did. Wind stirred the branches. Somewhere behind her, laughter echoed. The center was alive, a place that remembered, that welcomed, that healed, a promise kept, a light never extinguished. Up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for. You just click the image you want to watch and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.